But I'm curious for you, as you grew up, did you have an idea of, I mean, like goals, aspirations, things you wanted to do, or was it almost growing up saying like, I just want to make it out alive? Like, I mean, it sounds like it was an intense place you were growing up in.
Yeah. I mean, again, because of my parents, they did their best to shelter us from a lot of that. We saw it, but we weren't directly in it, thankfully. And that's because our
Yeah.
parents, they kept us in the house. We had to be home after a certain time. Like, and I had to page my mom back when pagers were a thing, right?
Yeah.
But like I had to page my mom, and then I had to call my dad at work to let him know and to let them know that we were home. And my mom would call the house to make sure, like, you home, you better not go nowhere, because I'll be home in like an hour. And so for me, I think I had dreams, I had aspirations, I had goals. What they were, I mean, it's funny. What they were, I don't entirely remember.
Yeah.
I know my mom never lets me live this down. When I was in first grade, I told her I wanted to be the icy man. I wanted to be the guy that was, on the corner selling ices to all the kids and the people that came by after school.
Oh yeah.
And it's because they earned a lot of quarters. Right. So I guess that was like the first iteration of like my dream or my goal.
Yeah.
And I think over time it evolved to wanting to be a rapper, to wanting to be a singer, to eventually when I got to college, it was I wanted to be a businessman. I wanted to be in business. And so, it jumped around quite a bit. But I don't know that I had like one thing that I was like, this is what I'm going to be when I get older. Like I'm so sure of it. Like it wasn't that.
Yeah. So when does social work come into play?
Man, that comes into play probably like my fourth. Yeah, I say about my fourth year in college. So I did 5 years of undergrad because I wasn't the best student. Again, like I got to college and I thought that I knew what I wanted to do. Right, I was like, oh, I'm gonna study business, and because that's where the money is. And the whole point of going to college is so you can get a job and so you can make some money, especially, where I'm from. It's like, you got to make money. You got to get up out of here. Because my parents, they were big on education. So it was like, that was the ticket out. And I said, okay, well, if I figure out a way to make money, I can get out of here.
Yeah.
So failed calc, failed it with flying colors. And the F stood for flying colors, because that's literally what went by on the board with all like the derivatives and equations and whatever that stuff was. And I got to a really low place, because I tried business, that didn't work. Then I was like, oh, well, I'll shift to economics. That didn't work. And I was on the verge of failing out. I'd been at the school probably about 3 years at this point. I went to Binghamton University, and I was an undergrad for about 3 years, hadn't declared a major officially. GPA was below a 2.0. It was at a 1.6 specifically, lost financial aid.
Dang.
And it was like, yo, what am I doing? And I was like, I was lost, honestly, right? Because I went to college trying to fit in, trying to be somebody that I really wasn't because of my upbringing, in high school, in middle school, elementary school.
Yeah.
I always felt like the outsider. And so I was always trying to figure out where I belonged. And I carried that into college, not knowing that, right?
Right.
So I'm at this point and I'm like, all right, well, I got to figure out something. Business is not working. This economics thing is not working. Clearly, the whole point of being here is to get a degree. Yeah, but I'm trying to make some money. Like I got to make money. So if I could figure out a way to get to that and skip all these other steps, I'll be good, right? Like, makes sense. So I looked at, some of my friends back home, some of my friends that were currently in college with me. And I was like, yo, what they do doesn't seem that hard. And they look like they're doing pretty good for themselves. And so just by your reaction, I feel like you kind of got an idea. But I started to get involved with illegal substances, and specifically the sale of them. And I would argue I was relatively successful. I had money in my pocket. I could buy myself J's and put some,
Yeah.
clothes on my back, and I could hang out with friends and stuff. And
Hmm.
it just turned out to be a realization that who I became wasn't who I really believed myself to be. Right. And you ask, like, at that age, at a young age, did I have a vision or a goal for myself? It wasn't really clear, but in that time that I was involved in this lifestyle, it slowly became clear, right? Because I started having to watch over my back. I started
Yeah.
having to, look over my shoulder. I lived with this paranoia that wasn't really what I imagined for myself. And I believe that every one of us has a vision of ourselves to some degree for our future, right? We may not have a specific occupation or specific goal, but I believe that to some degree we have a feeling or an understanding of who we want to be known as, what we want to be known for, or even who we are at our core, right? Like,
Yeah.
I believe that. And so, you know, long story short, I got to a point where I realized, like, yo, this is not adding up for me. Like,
Yeah.
where I am and what I'm doing is not what I envisioned for myself. And I'm not proud of this. Like, my best friend didn't know I was doing that. My mom didn't know I was doing that. Like, the people that worked so hard to get me to where I was at that up until that point had no clue, you know. And I remember my mom dead asking me in my face, like, are you doing drugs? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Little does she know, right? But, I realized that I had a choice to make. And it was either continue this lifestyle and to endure whatever consequences, outcome, or results would come with it, um, or to reframe my lifestyle around something totally different,
Hmm.
and what that would be, I didn't know. What it would look like, I didn't really know. But I just knew what I was currently doing wasn't it, because it
Yeah.
didn't match who I really believed myself to be. Um, and so I reached out and I asked someone for help, which is something that I hadn't done up until that point.
Yeah.
And so, I realized I wasn't the only one that would ever go through that experience, that has ever gone through that experience, that experience. And so if I could share my experience as a way to motivate someone else and to inspire them to understand that they can change their lives,
Yeah.
then I wanted to do that. Right. And so I took one human development class at Binghamton, and it like blew my mind because
Hmm.
it challenged the way that I viewed myself, the way that I understood the world, the way that I understood society. Um, and it helped me to realize that since I was a kid, I've always had the question, why? Like, I've always asked that. That was always a question. Like, when I used to get bullied, when at home, like, that was always the
Yeah.
question I asked. But why? Like, why is it that I can't do that? Why is it that they treat me like this? Why is it that they think this about me? Why is it that they act like that? And that class kind of helped me to start unpack that question,
Hmm.
for myself and even for the world around me. And, you
What were
know,
like the basic main takeaways you took from that with it being so impactful in the human
oh,
development?
bro, basically that everything, which is where my message, success as a lifestyle, is like born from. It's
Yeah.
everything that we are surrounded by, that we observe, that we witness, that we consume, that we hear, that we touch, everything impacts us and shapes the way that we view the world, the way that we see the world, the way that we walk through the world, the way that we think about and understand the world and
Hmm.
ourselves in the world,
Yeah.
and so everything from the neighborhood I grew up in, to the people I was around, to my family, to their family, right? And like the environment they came from and they grew up
Yeah.
in, and how their parent, like, all of that informs who I am today and continues to inform who I will be, because every day we're going through something, right? Positive, negative, and different,
Yeah.
and it's shaping us. And I hadn't realized how much of who I was impacted and shaped by what I'd been through, what I'd experienced. And so that shaped, that still to this day is a very defining moment. And
Yeah.
I'm so in love with that. Like, I love that, having those kind of conversations about that.
Yeah.